So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Avalon Nano3S. So this is from Avalon, and this is their kind of home miners build or home miner selection. As you can see here, this Avalon is torn down, so the top of the case is taken off. This is the newer version, and we're currently sitting around 6.36 terahash on the Avalon Nano, and we're pulling around 132 watts or 131, as you can see in there. So today we're going to be talking about probably the reason that this is one of the best home miners that you can buy. I know it's not necessarily open source, and most of our videos are talking about open source miners like the bitaxe, but we're going to be doing a little bit of a comparison today against, the terahash and how much you're paying for it, and then how much that equates to in terms of the bitaxe, and how much that equates to in terms of actual ASIC miners. So a comparison between how much you're paying per terahash for bitaxe miners and how much you're paying compared to ASIC miners. But before we jump into all of that, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Crypto Miner Bros.
Since 2018, CryptoMinerBros.com has been the premier site for top-tier crypto mining hardware, earning the trust of miners across the globe. The prices displayed on their site cover shipping and DDP straight to your doorstep, ensuring no unexpected costs at checkout. They deliver to over 100 countries and even provide lower invoicing options to help you cut down on customs fees. Payment is a breeze with options like direct bank transfer or cryptocurrencies including Bitcoin, USDT, or Ethereum. With over 250 ASIC options, they stock some of the channel's favorites like the bitaxe Touch, and the Avalon Nano3S. Join tens of thousands of happy customers who rely on CryptoMinerBros.com for dependable hardware fulfillment, clear pricing, and a top-notch service. Check out CryptoMinerBros.com today, link in the description.
So if you've never seen one of these before, obviously you've probably never seen one with the case taken off, or I'm assuming that a lot of you haven't. But this is the case taken off, so the chips run under here and under this board here, but this is the LCD and this is the touchscreen. So it has three modes. One of them is low, next one medium, next one high. We're on the high mode, and the low mode is around 3 terahash, medium is around 4.5, and the high mode is 6, as you see right there. And it has 3 fans. If you kind of see down in here, this is right next to the bitaxe hex, so you can't really see much, but there's the 3 fans that are blowing into the Avalon Nano. So let's get into some price comparison for this, and let's head over to the computer and see the difference between the bitaxe and other ASIC miners, and probably why this is the best for home mining if you're just starting out.
So this is originally what the Avalon Nano3S looks like, and the specifications are 6 terahash at 140 watts, so it's a little bit off to what the actual specifications are. So as you saw in the video previously, we have 6.32 terahash for around 131 watts, so it's actually slightly better than what it's saying here, and they go for around $300. So this is it without the actual case taken off. So that LCD screen is the screen that you saw on the video, and then this little point by here that you can see is basically the touchscreen underneath, so the thing you use to change the modes on it. So the reason that we took it apart is because we were trying to work out how to make it more efficient. There isn't a way really to do that unless you build out your own kind of firmware based on top of the Canon firmware, and I'm not smart enough to do that. So we're kind of just stuck with that. We could put the case on, but I haven't had time to really do it. So if we're talking about home mining, this is probably one of the best ones because of the fact that it's small enough in watts and gives you a large amount of terahash. For example, with the bitaxe you get, or the bitaxe Gamma, you get 1.2 terahash for the price of probably $100 or even more, which means if you wanted to achieve 6 terahash, you'd probably be paying upwards of $600, or at least if you wanted a Nerd QX, that might run you could get up to 6 terahash on a Nerd QX, and that might run you around $400 to $500. So you're saving out in terms of the price overall, but we'll get into some more calculations as the video goes on. Obviously these are supposed to be used as heaters to recoup some of the cost of heating, but you can also use it for solo mining if you really want to. And the noise isn't massive on them, so even with the bitaxe, if you get a stock fan, they are quite loud, but you can upgrade to a Noctua. But these are around 40 decibels, so about the same decibels as a GPU that you would use. So there's not really much to talk about in terms of the functions. We kind of covered that in previous videos. There is a dashboard. One thing I want to note, I still don't like the dashboard on this. It's very minimal, and I'd like to see a little bit more. So you can see here the Avalon Mini 3 has a degrees and night mode and stuff like that you can see on this app. And for the bigger version, which is I think 37 terahash, you get way more functionality, which they haven't built into the Avalon Nano. So hopefully in the future they actually bring that along, because I want to see some sort of overclocking or at least temperature control on the chip. So that's pretty much it in terms of the specifications covered. So let's actually get into the numbers. So we just have a calculator here, and what we're really looking for is firstly how efficient the miner is. So that's going to be 140 watts. Well, let's just do it based off of our actual figures that we have. So 132, and that is divided by 6.32. And that is to work out the efficiency. So currently we're working at an efficiency of around 20 joules per terahash. So the efficiency isn't great. To give you an example, the typical efficiency of the newest generation chips right now is around 14 to 15 joules per terahash. So these would be considered older efficiency models. So that gives us the efficiency number. And we also want to know how much we're paying per terahash. So if we have $300, that is going to be divided by 6 or 6.32. And that means we're paying around $47 per terahash on this machine. So we got those two numbers there. Now, the main reason for this is that we can compare them to other miners. For example, the bitaxe Gamma, that's a simple one that we can show you. That is around 1.2 terahash. And if you pay $120 for one of those, you're paying basically $100 per terahash. So already it's around half of what you're going to pay per terahash for a bitaxe Gamma. But this is still way far off what we're seeing in terms of the prices of actual hash rate in today's market. And we can show you this here. So you have an S21 XP. This does 270 terahash at around $4,000. So you would take $4,000 and divide that by 270, and that gives you a price per terahash of $14. So you can see even with these newer models, you're paying substantially more. But the only reason that I think this is the best for home mining is that you get access to hash rate at a much lower cost. If you wanted to buy one of these S21s, you would have to fork out $4,000. But if you want to buy an Avalon Nano, you only have to fork out $300. So technically you're overpaying for hash rate, but it gives you the benefit of having, less capital invested into actually mining before you kind of jump into bigger ASICs that you see here. And then we can even see this for, let's just check out the S21XE, do a calculation here. So it's around 15,000 divided by the 860 terahash, and that gives you 17.44. So those are the different calculations that you can do to find out how much you're kind of paying in terms of the hash rate. As I said, 47 is not great. It's kind of ever changing, because as you go down the list you would expect to pay more per terahash, but because there's newer versions, the actual price is way lower. Another benefit of this is that you're not paying for that much electricity. At the watts of 140 watts, you don't have to worry so much about electricity prices and paying that off. With ASIC miners, these bigger ones, you have stuff like 4,000, 5,000, 3,000 watts that would cost a lot of money to actually run on its own, and you'd actually have to think about the profitability behind all of it. So typically we would use an ASIC price index to kind of look at these things. And this basically tells you what efficiency, so we've already calculated the efficiency, and it is 20 joules per terahash, as you can see right there. And it basically tells you how much you should be paying per terahash for that efficiency. As the efficiency gets better, you would expect to pay more per terahash. At current efficiency, you should be paying around $8.76 per terahash for that efficiencies. So compared to 47 is quite far off. And as you go down in the efficiency, you'll obviously pay less per terahash because it's less efficient. You can even see this on the all-time chart. So you have these really bad efficiencies right there, and then they start to cross over, and that's where you get new ones coming online, and then you get newer ones, so better efficiencies there, and then better efficiencies there again. And I'm sure with the introduction of the S23 that is coming out, that is also going to drop as well. So there's going to be a new efficiency. It's probably going to be under 15 joules per terahash. Gives you, you're going to pay top dollar for that efficiency. So that's mainly the figures that you'd want to look at. And when comparing it to other home miners like the bitaxe and NerdQX, the open source nature kind of opens it up to be a little bit more expensive, I believe, because Canon obviously has a whole production line and they can produce these for way cheaper. They also have their own chips, which makes it easier. This is probably why it's the best introduction, at least, into Bitcoin mining, is because you get a good amount of hash rate for around $300, and you can also not count on how much watts this is going to actually cost you. We can do a calculation for how much it should cost you per day, and then you can make a judgment on if you would like to pay that much. So 140 watts. So because it consumes 140, but we'll put it down to 132 because that's what we're using, we times that by 24 because it's 24 hours in a day. Overall, in a day, it's consuming 3.168 kilowatts. And then all you have to do is times that number, so 3.168 times by your electricity rate. So if you had, I'm going to conservatively put 15 cents per kilowatt hour because that's probably an average of what everyone or all my viewers have. I know some people have 10, some people have 20, but 15 cents will middle it. And we click enter. So it's going to cost you around 50 cents per day to run one of these. Of course, you can times that by 365. So across the year, it's going to cost $173 to actually run this per year. Now that's on the high mode. If you want to use the low mode, that gives you way more efficiency. And I believe the low mode is around 4 terahash for something like 80 watts maybe. So that would be a different calculation. That would be 80 divided by 4. So the efficiency is slightly better. I'll have to double check those numbers, but the efficiency is slightly better on the low mode, but you're just spending less on power. So if it's at 80 watts, you would do that times by 24 and then divided by 1000 times by your electricity price, and that would be 28 cents per day. So you're basically spending half of that, and then times by 365, and that gives you $100 per year. So you can mix and match whichever mode you want to use. As I said, it is normally used for heating, so if you have a use for this, it's better. But if you want to get into solo Bitcoin mining or just Bitcoin mining in general, it's a great starting place. But if you do have use for the heat, that's going to be even better because you're actually using it for a useful purpose and then recuperating some of the cost. And then finally, we can take it to a Bitcoin mining calculator to see how much of that cost you're probably going to recuperate over time. So we just want the hash rate, which would be 6.32. And then the watts would be 132. So it doesn't really matter about the electricity price because that is going to be with whatever you have. But the mining revenue per day is going to be 33 cents as it shows there. So 0.33 times by 365 because that's per day. And then you minus the 170. So you can recuperate about $120, but you're going to lose around $50 with the hope that it's going to heat up something useful. That's basically the main point around it. The only useful thing I've kind of seen it for is heating lizard enclosures. So if you have any other ideas of how that could be used, please let me know in the comments. overall, that's probably my best explanation of why this is the best home miner to probably get into. As much as I love the bitaxe, the price per terahash is still astronomically high compared to these ones, and I'm sure a lot of people would rather buy these over the bitaxe because of the price point. That's the main thing that comes into play. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this.